I'm a gardener, and something that I look forward to in the spring is spring. It's the garden beginning. But when you garden, you're also very aware that the first plants out, other than the crocuses, are the weeds. Okay, they're first ones out of the gate, and they're kind of like ready to strangle the life of whatever plant comes up. And then there are also plants that are emerging, and we think, oh, it's beautiful. This is such a beautiful time, or whatever. But they're battling one another for space. They're battling one another for life. They're battling one another to live. And what that always puts me in mind about with beginnings is that there is something that is very virile, that is very powerful about a beginning and a start. It's life living. And so it's not going to be held back. It's not going to be hindered. It's going to go forward. And this is something that we see very much in the zodiac sign of Aries. There's also a wonderful defiance about life here in the spring. It's defying winter. It's defying death. It's announcing itself, and it's moving on forward. And it has to get a lot of things done and very quickly. And these are all things that we see associated with the zodiac sign of Aries. We see the urgency. We see the ferocity of focus. We see the need to live and to gain as much ground as possible. And as I said before, Pluto had been squaring or hindering this energy for a number of years, but now it's encouraging it. Okay, so now it's saying, go forward and, beget, or what, I don't know, from the Bible. It's like, go forward and live. And so this is very much the energy that we can celebrate here in the spring. And as Leslie said, we can actually sort of take this as a signature for the next 20 years. Why not?
Buckle up, astrology lovers. This episode is your roadmap to navigating April's cosmic roller coaster. Straight out the gate, we'll be experiencing the much anticipated new moon full solar eclipse in Aries. This is one of those once in a generation life-changing eclipses. So stay tuned to hear what our astrologers have to say about that. Mercury will also turn retrograde in Aries for almost the entire month. Plus, we'll have a rockstar aspect, the rare Jupiter conjunct Uranus, which only happens once every 14 years. Stay tuned until the very end and grab a pen because things are about to get juicy. At the end of the episode, our guest astrologers will discuss the month's hotspots, intense or transformational periods that could pack a punch. You won't want to miss this. I'm joined today by two wonderful astrologers, Leslie Tagorda and Christopher Renstron. Leslie is a multi-hyphenate, all-around astrological branding badass and creative who helps seers, speakers, and change makers become the luminary leaders they were born to be. She's also the April 2024 Inner Circle Guidess for all of you Inner Circle members out there. And Christopher Renstrom is a beloved staple at Astrology Hub as the author of our weekly horoscopes and featured astrologer on the podcast. He's also a world-renowned best-selling author and historian. You can catch Christopher as a regular guest on Astrology Hub's premium podcast, an Inner Circle exclusive, with new episodes out every Sunday. And he'll be our guiding astrologer in the Inner Circle for the Gemini lunar cycle beginning in June. IC members, there is much to look forward to. And if getting guidance and chart reading instruction from professionals like Leslie and Christopher sounds amazing to you, and you're not yet a member, now is the time to hop into the Inner Circle Expand membership. We just opened our short promotional period, and Inner Circle Expand members get guidance and chart reading instruction from different astrologers each month with instructional new and full moon forecasts, mastery class teachings. They get to ask questions directly to the teaching astrologers and much more. Now through April 9th, you can get into the Inner Circle Expand, or IC for short, at the lowest pricing we offer all year. And for those of you who are short on time but big on inspiration, you can lock in the founding member price of our newest level of the Inner Circle, Grow. This level is designed for the busy astrology lover who wants bite-sized, on-the-go astrological insights. All levels get to participate in a new moon intention setting ceremony that I get to lead, daily cosmic pulse updates, discounts on Astrology Hub courses, that premium podcast content I mentioned earlier, and so much more. Go to astrologyhub.com/innercircle24 to learn more and join us today. We'll also drop that link in the show notes. Christopher and Leslie, welcome. I cannot wait to get into the April astrology. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for welcoming us. It was so lovely.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Of course. All right. Let's start with that big picture theme. What is the theme for April?
Oh, we were cooking up a couple of themes. When you were explaining like the rock star of April and just like how ginormous it is, I feel like everything culminates in April for like the next 20 years or something.
Oh God. Whoa.
Maybe not that long.
This April is the most important moment of the next 20 years. Wow. So it's a big month though. I mean, I know you astrologers don't always say things like that. It's not something you throw around. So that sounds like a big deal.
Well, the other thing, what we need to keep in mind with April and actually the Aries season, right? And so we're really talking about the end of March into April, is that it is the beginning of the new year for many countries around the world. This is when they celebrate their new year. They don't do it at a goofy time like we do, which is like Christmas or December, January. They do it, with the spring equinox where the sun is really returning. What makes this so powerful this time around is that it's the first time that the sun is entering Aries and is in Aries, Pluto free. Okay. We have to remember that Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008, 2009. So it has been squaring the sun entering Aries every year on a regular basis since. All right.
Wow.
Well, this is the first time that we are Pluto free. But it's more than just Pluto free. Pluto in a supportive and encouraging position. All right. Since 2008, 2009, Pluto's been squaring the sun every time it's been here. But now Pluto is in Aquarius, which forms a sextile to the sun in Aries. So Pluto we are meeting Pluto as a much more encouraging and supportive figure than we have before. And so this is something we can absolutely celebrate in this month of April.
Well, hey, beautiful. Yeah. I mean, if you had to give us a theme, like it's something we can sort of anchor on as we're entering into April, what would you say that is?
I'm a gardener, and something that I look forward to in the spring is spring. It's the garden beginning. But when you garden, you're also very aware that the first plants out, other than the crocuses, are the weeds. Okay, they're first ones out of the cage, and they're kind of like ready to strangle the life of whatever plant comes up. And then there are also plants that are emerging, and we think, oh, it's beautiful. This is such a beautiful time, or whatever. But they're battling one another for space. They're battling one another for life. They're battling one another to live. And what that always puts me in mind about with beginnings is that there is something that is very virile, that is very powerful about a beginning and a start. It's life living. And so it's not going to be held back. It's not going to be hindered. It's going to go forward. And this is something that we see very much in the zodiac sign of Aries. There's also a wonderful defiance about life here in the spring. It's defying winter. It's defying death. It's announcing itself, and it's moving on forward. And it has to get a lot of things done and very quickly. And these are all things that we see associated with the zodiac sign of Aries. We see the urgency. We see the ferocity of focus. We see the need to live and to gain as much ground as possible. And as I said before, Pluto had been squaring or hindering this energy for a number of years, but now it's encouraging it. Okay, so now it's saying, go forward and, beget, or what, I don't know, from the Bible. It's like, go forward and live. And so this is very much the energy that we can celebrate here in the spring. And as Leslie said, we can actually sort of take this as a signature for the next 20 years. Why not? That's around the time that Pluto's going to be sextiling the sun and it's going to be forming those marvelous sextiles to the sun. And sextiles are benevolent and they're beneficent. And so this is very life affirming. And it's not kind of like, I have to hurry up and float out a project or get something, it's not that. It's, that you're going to feel very much a part of your life force, which is coming forth. And I think that's also another idea for this month is the life force, the vitality of the life force streaming and pouring forth and coming through you and coming through all of us. And in what can be also understood in a marvelously Aquarian way. You don't do it for just yourself. You're doing it in coordination with the other lives and the peoples around you.
Love that. Few things came out of there. Leslie, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, as Christopher was talking, I kept on having these visions of Jurassic Park, Life Has a Way, just imagining all of like the little shoots when they, when they first emerge out of that Pisces and they like reach for that sunlight, they're tender still. They still need to be protected. And I want to give some love to the weeds. They're the involuntary or the involuntaries, voluntaries.
Right. Well, there's the voluntaries too. Which
exactly. Like, how do we love all of those energies and like give like, what are we choosing now? What to cultivate? Okay, maybe we don't want that one weed. Pluck it out. But then creating and protecting all of this new emergent life. And, even though there's that urgency of Aries, I feel like because of our Mercury retrograde, we get to really rethink. And what you said about that Pluto sextile, that feels so wonderful to have like transformation on our side as an opportunity instead of as like a trigger point.
Right. Exactly. I mean, that's going to take some getting used to.
We've been working so hard last few years.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Leslie, we know that Mercury is going retrograde in Aries as well. So what are the dates of this and what do you think this energy will feel like?
Yeah. So as soon as April opens its doors on April 1st, Mercury goes retrograde that afternoon at 27 degrees of Aries. And it's going to be retrograde for kind of a long time, all the way until April 25th. And so this is a little bit longer than our normal normal Mercury retrograde, 3 weeks or so. It's a little bit longer. And what's so interesting is that it's the area that it's highlighting is a little bit more condensed. So it feels like we think of Mercury in Aries, it's like, it's strong-willed. It wants to maybe confront anything at its going. It feels like usually like a train, like a bullet train just speeding through, wanting to go quick. And then now it's in retrograde. Not only is it like going in reverse, but now it has to go slow over this long distance of time. It almost feels like we have to consciously downshift our gears so that we don't burn out with this Mercury retrograde.
So I'm getting a bit of like a conflicting energy because we have new energy around Aries and the liberation from Pluto that we have. And that might feel like all systems go, like, yes, go, new life force, all this. But then Mercury going retrograde in Aries, kind of saying, well, hold on, maybe not so fast. And I mean, is the invitation there to remember that we don't have to get it all done right at once, that this life force that we're feeling, we don't have to think like, oh God, I gotta use it because I might not have it forever. Like, how can we interpret that?
Yeah. So, we feel these Mercury retrogrades on a very personal level. And to me, this is our opportunity to rethink and to recalibrate and to reorganize our ideas and to reboot our mindset. And when we think about going retrograde in Aries, like everything that we need to decondition and unlearn and defragment, all of this unhelpful information of the shadows of Aries, we want to take our time. We don't want to rush through that. I feel like this is an opportunity for us to be really grateful, to deepen into our mindset, to relearn things about what it means to truly be Aries, because there's so many shadows that are associated with Aries, especially in just times of conflict. And so how can we unlearn? How can we decondition and learn to savor and go a little bit slow, not just always be in such a rush?
Christopher, is there anything you'd want to add to the Mercury retrograde conversation?
Yeah, I think it's going to be one hell of an April Fool's Day because it's on April 1st. All right. And I think the other thing to sort of keep in mind that, and I think Leslie did a wonderful, something I was thinking about when Leslie was talking about is how you want to get something over with really quickly, and it made me think of who's ever ready for a beginning. We can plan for a beginning, we can prep for a beginning, but then all of a sudden when it's like, you're on, okay, unless you're an athlete who's gone through, like training and you visualize and the gun goes off and you explode forward. A lot of us are like, we're on, we're beginning, we're on,
What's going on?
Yeah, and I think this Mercury retrograde can do that. In some ways, it might almost be like a pratfall. That you're ready to go, and then you step on your shoelace and you fall over, or the start goes off oddly or something like that, and so because we know that with the Mercury retrograde, Mercury is always going to throw a monkey wrench into our best laid plans. Okay, so you always have to be ready for technical glitches or losing the keys or those. The cosmos tomfoolery, Mercury making fun of us. The wonderful thing about Mercury retrograde is that when you go back and do your do-over, more often than not, you discover a better way to do it. Okay, you discover an alternative that's better than what your original choice was. And so be open to those wonderful possibilities. Mercury retrograde's more than confounding you, and it's more than a do-over. Mercury retrograde, because you travel over the same ground that you just traveled over. You travel back over the same ground you traveled over. All of a sudden presents alternatives and choices you weren't thinking of the first time around. And that's really the beauty of that kind of a retrograde.
Love that. It's a course correction, right? And so if we fall flat on our face, it's okay. There's a better way to start or enter and to not be too hard on ourselves.
And maybe even course improvement.
Yes.
Because a lot of times we can feel like, I've got to get this right, and then when we're made to do it again, it's like, I'm thinking of my acting background. It would be like, let's do that again, but this time breathe and relax and don't be as like, whatever. And I'll be like, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, like I see this idea and that idea and this idea. And this is the beauty of a Mercury retrograde in Aries, because you can often feel that urgency of the Aries. And then, as Leslie was saying, is like, take a breath. Let's do it again. This isn't your one shot at getting it right. You could do it again, and maybe even find a better way of doing it.
Every day, people turn to astrology for deeper self-understanding and growth. But the overwhelming complexity leaves many lost and confused. That's why we created Astrology Hub's Inner Circle over 7 years ago. It's the go-to place for curious minds and devoted students. Every month, we align our astrological learning with the natural rhythm of the lunar cycle, using awareness, intention, and aligned action to systematically grow in our astrological fluency and transform our lives in the process. And no matter where you're at in your astrological journey, we have a place for you to land. When you join us during this promotional period, you'll be able to choose from 2 tiers of membership. Inner Circle Grow is for the astrology lover who wants bite-sized, seamlessly integrated daily wisdom. And Inner Circle Expand gets everything Grow members receive, but is also designed for the astrology student who wants to learn the astrological language directly from the masters themselves. Now, through April 9th, you can join either level for the lowest prices we ever offer. Lock in Tier 1 of membership, Grow, for the founding member price of $17 a month, or get 45% off our flagship membership tier, Expand. By joining during this promotional period, you'll lock in these low prices for as long as you remain a member. Whether you're new to astrology or a seasoned student, whether you have tons of time to invest or just want the information in quick ways, the Inner Circle meets you where you are and gives you the consistency you need to leverage astrology's gifts to up-level your life. Join a global community united under the same sky at astrologyhub.com/innercircle24. Align with the cosmos and transform your life in the process, moon cycle after moon cycle. Join our Inner Circle today.
So good. Okay. So we're out the gate with this Mercury retrograde. Then we go to the full solar eclipse in Aries. Let's talk about that. There's a lot of buzz about that. There's a lot of conversation. We've been having panels. We've been having discussions. Why is it so critical? What's happening?
Oh, well, the biggest thing?
Let's go with the biggest thing.
The Chiron conjunction to the exact minute of this new eclipse. This is the first new moon of our astrological new year, and it is the great American total eclipse conjunct Chiron. I mean, it feels really big. It feels really momentous. And, I was thinking, I can't wait to hear your thoughts, Christopher, on like Mars and Pisces, because, this Aries eclipse is ruled by Mars, who's doing its best to swim through Pisces without totally getting extinguished. But this eclipse to me, especially conjunct the North Node, it feels like we're just taking these, like we're accelerating and stepping on the gas, even though Mercury retrograde is saying, hold on. So we do have this push-pull, but for all of us as humanity, as consciousness, we're taking these leaps into what does it mean to be? How do we value all of the different experiences and diverse intelligences, that we're all equal in a way, that there's nobody who's best or better than anybody else, but how do we become our best? And to me, there is this kind of paradigm shift in seeing our contributions that way, with Chiron being there.
Yeah. And I think that's a big deal because it's visible, right? Here in the United States, the solar eclipse.
North America, from west coast of Mexico all the way up to the east coast of Canada.
So we're doing a rerun of August 2017.
Yes, that's the thing. The last time it happened was August 2017, and it passed across the United States, and now it's doing the same thing, and the two paths overlaid on each other make an X, which is another very interesting symbolism.
Where did the eclipse paths cross, the one from 2017 and now in 2024?
Okay, so it looks like Cedar Lake in Jackson County, Illinois.
Oh, that north.
So, yes. And the closest town to this exact astronomical treasure map spot is Maconda. The population is 500. So, yes. But it's an interesting symbolism. I mean, I think we can all agree that the 2017 eclipse cutting the United States literally like in half. We certainly have been living in the division, in the like cut in half. So what does an X going over that? What does that bring?
X marks the spot.
We're all coming together in that little tiny town in Illinois.
All of a sudden, that Illinois town will be transformed because it has to get its hotels up and things like that. It's like the Olympics town. I don't know.
Yeah, so it is fully visible. So what does that mean? When we're interpreting the astrology of an eclipse and it's fully visible versus when it's not, what does that mean?
Those were the most potent eclipses. So all eclipses, solar and lunar eclipses, are important, but the visible eclipses are pretty much determined to be the most powerful. Okay. This eclipse is taking place in Aries, which is the start of an agricultural year. Okay, so it's very, very powerful. It's very important. Solar eclipses always dealt with public figures, okay? And it could be the sudden death or fall of public figures. So this is what made people like popes and kings very uneasy around the time of the eclipse. A solar eclipse famously was predicted for the Ides of March. And so it showed it indicated the downfall of Caesar, Julius Caesar. And this is part of the reason why astrology was outlawed in Rome, because if you knew astrology, you could look up at the heavens and you could see, like, that an eclipse was coming, and the assassins actually timed it with the eclipse. And so that was the fall of Caesar. So it was just, did the eclipse give the assassins the idea to assassinate him on that day, or was it synchronicity and he was assassinated on the day of the eclipse or whatever? So solar eclipse was the fall of someone in power. And then a lunar eclipse always dealt with the body politic. The moon is the body and moon is the land. And so the lunar eclipse would always deal with the health of the country itself, where you're going to have droughts, where you're going to have pestilences, where you're going to have wars, rivalries, things like that. So the solar eclipse is always connected to the fall from power of a very recognized person. What's also interesting about this eclipse is that it is taking place at 19 degrees Aries. And according to the table of essential dignities of the planets by Ptolemy, we already know that the sun is exalted, most celebrated in the zodiac sign of Aries, and it's celebrated because this is the beginning of the year, okay? But there are certain degrees that the sun, that a planet is exalted. And so the sun is exalted at exactly 19 degrees Aries. So this eclipse is taking place at the exalted degree. So it's like, couldn't be even more, the stars couldn't boldface, put enough exclamation points and underline more than that. I mean, and astrologers were always adding up the confirmations, right? Leslie, we're always adding up what's reinforcing or confirming or perhaps contradicting this idea. This is trying to interpret the mess of aspects that take place. And here we've got the sun in an exalted sign. First time without Pluto being a hindering figure. It's actually an encouraging and helpful figure, okay? And then it's at the exalted degree of 19 degrees Aries.
So would you interpret the 19 degrees, so Aries, the most exalted that it can be at 19 degrees of Aries? Would that interpretation be it's going to be even more of the usual flavor of a full solar eclipse than usual? Or would it mean it's going to be more auspicious? It's going to be maybe the more exalted qualities of what might come from an eclipse?
It's really stacking up. It's the sun exalted. It's at an exalted degree. It's an eclipse. I can share with you the history of eclipses. They've taken on sort of more benign attitude in the 20th century. There's, a lot of astrologers will kind of regard them as course correctors, in a chart or something like this. But I did want to sort of give like the background of what the history of that was. And, that's what we're all going to find out together.
I know that really does feel like that. Whenever I've been talking about it, it's like, we're going to find out together. We're going to get as much information and data as we can. We're going to, like you said, look at it from all the different angles, and then we'll see. Right? Yeah. It's just like 2020. When we were talking about 2020 and 2019, we were looking at going, oh my God, it's this and this and this and this, and it could be all these kinds of things, and we'll see and we'll find out together. Right?
Because as astrologers, we know that we're going to live past this event. And astrologers were big time record keepers, so it's like, let's see what happens with this. Oh, that's what happened. That goes down in the log or the diary or the journal, and I'm going to use that as a reference point. And so as astrologers, we're always contributing to this never ending library of astrology, which is centuries old, which is, okay, this is what it did when we saw it,
But it doesn't always happen like on the day. Right? How long is this energy active for when you're looking at a chart and interpreting it? How long would you have it at play?
I always give 2 weeks on the run up to the eclipse.
Yeah. You wait after 2 weeks before?
2 weeks before. And sometimes 2 weeks after if they've completed their eclipse cycle, but usually 2 weeks after one eclipse is the next eclipse. So, but I usually give it, right, Leslie? I usually give it like a run up, but I give it personally weeks. I don't know how much you give it, but I give it 2 weeks.
Yeah, personally, I give it like almost 4 weeks before, just kind of a whole month up to lead up, because like these are essentially accelerator points, these like gateways, these portals that we're going through. And then at least what I've noticed in terms of like natal astrology and how do we use these opportunities and challenges to our advantage, these eclipse points stay ripe and open for up to 6 months. And so, looking at some of the different transits that are coming up over the next 6 months, how we'll get those sparks, those repetitions of those themes, at least in our personal lives. In terms of like the mundane astrology, I'm so grateful for you, Christopher, to have just this archive. And for me, I'm like, okay, how can we use this so that we don't go down the rabbit hole of fear and get scared of it for ourselves? Because there's a lot of potential and opportunities and passageways into new ways of being with these eclipses as we look at it in our natal chart to see, do we have planets being aspected or angles being aspected? And how do we choose how we want to work with those energies instead of feeling like fated and then just going down the rabbit hole of the pendulum instead of going upwards?
People are trying to understand, Leslie, you're talking about the opportunities and what, if we're choosing, and Christopher, you brought that up before too. It's like, it could be this, it could be that at some point, there are decisions that people can make for how they're going to respond to whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So what would you say are the opportunities? I mean, what are the invitations or the opportunities of this particular eclipse?
Well, at least from my point of view, especially since it's conjunct Chiron, when we think of a new moon, we know it's about setting intentions. And the reason why we set intentions is to get clear on what we want. And that's a huge gap that I feel that people are like, oh, I'm just going to make a willy-nilly intention. But the universe really wants you to speak to what you want. And sometimes we don't accomplish anything in life because we're not clear on what we want. And so Aries is I am, and Aries knows exactly what it wants. And so with this, total eclipse, just the eclipse energy and new moon that is like amped up and magnified, this is all of our chances to say, well, what do I want? Who do I want to be in the face of adversity? Who do I want to be as a leader? How do I want to take initiative even if I'm fearful? How do I want to face my fears? How do I want to go my own way without feeling rejection or shame? And so there's so much energy there with this new moon conjunct Chiron for all of us to stand in our power and decide, who do I want to be?
I love it. Thank you. Okay. We've been talking at Astrology Hub a lot about the eclipse, so I'd love to move on to the next one. So let's move to April 10th. Christopher, we have Mars in Pisces conjunct Saturn in Pisces. How will these two planets working together influence our energy levels, our motivation? What's going on with that transit?
Yeah, Mars in Pisces really is an intricate placement. I call it the constant craving Mars. And I don't know if you're familiar with that song by Katie Lang that she made quite popular. It's a Mars. It's a Mars that's going after what it wants, but it is the nature of Pisces to not get it. Okay. And so Pisces is very much combined with yearning, with longing for something that it doesn't have. So Mars wants to go after its objectives. It wants to go and make the score or make the date or satisfy its desire. Okay, but when you're dealing with the fathomless depth of Pisces, that desire cannot be easily satisfied. Okay, so it either is always like in a dream, a hallway that's extending longer and longer and longer, the faster you race down to get to the other side of it. Or as I've often seen a lot with people who have Mars in Pisces, they get it and all of a sudden they're disenchanted. So there is this indisputable passion and this indisputable longing that is constant craving that is caught up with the Mars in Pisces, and it defies our easy explanations. It defies like, well, maybe you're just living in a fantasy world, or it defies that. It doesn't fit into that. When you combine Saturn in that sign, a lot of times people will see Saturn as a thwarting or a stifling energy. It's a harsh taskmaster. Its connection to teaching is millennia old. It's always been associated to that and to wisdom. But a lot of times Saturn can get interpreted as the wet blanket, the cold shower, the thing that brings you down. What I think is going to happen with the Mars-Saturn conjunction is that there is this desire, this craving, this want, this yearning. But what Saturn's going to do is kind of lock it into a holding position where it just stays like that. Okay. And so where Mars wants to reach its objective, it wants to cross the finish line, it's being made to stay in a holding position. And this is something that I've seen working with charts with like Venus, Saturn aspects. People feel very thwarted in love. And what I began to sort of see is, are you being thwarted in love so that you don't repeat the same mistake? And Saturn's kind of holding you in a space so you can make different decisions, or you grow into different decisions or different choices. Saturn's the planet of time. It can hold time. It can freeze time. So I think that there may be something in which we may experience it as a thwarting of our ambitions or aspirations or desires. These are swear words as far as an Aries or a Capricorn is concerned. It forces you to stay in a place of bewilderment and a place of wonder. And that's something that in otherwise might be a very sort of frustrating passage. I want you to sort of bring those ideas to the table when this energy is making its presence known in your life.
What are the dates? Like, I know it's happening on April 10th, but is there a time frame where this might be the most active?
What are the dates when we're going to be like sidelined, Christopher?
Dude,
from the kids.
I think we're being sidelined. Okay, we've got Mercury in Aries tossing the furniture down. We got this eclipse, and then we've got this Mars and Saturn. I would give it 5 to 10 days after that.
Okay.
Leading up to and after, for sure. Like the leading up to that crest, that wave, especially since we're dealing with Pisces, that Saturnian wave means business, right? It's just like, oh, it looks small. No. It's really powerful, that undercurrent. And then Mars is there. But there's another way that I like to offer up to think about this Mars and Saturn, just because Saturn is going to be in Pisces this entire year. And the lesson that Saturn wants us to learn is like this mastery, right? Through all of this trial and error, we get to like crystallize this mastery of Pisces. And if Pisces is our intuition and our inner wisdom, and now Mars is coming here to activate, maybe this kind of coming together, this crystallization of taking a beat, taking a rest, and like learning how to re-energize through rest, through mastering of that Pisces. I lost that word because it's Pisces.
Right. We're all at sea with Pisces.
All at sea. But we're really thirsty now. The unquenchable. We're at sea and we can't drink any of that water.
Right.
Amazing. Okay, good. Well, interesting start to the month, I must say. So we're now to April 20th, which I know is another huge astrological moment. Christopher, I remember you talking about this at our year ahead forecast last fall. So let's talk about Jupiter in Taurus conjunct Uranus. What kind of unexpected opportunities or breakthroughs could arise from this conjunction? What are you seeing? Leslie, let's start with you.
Oh gosh, I'm like, what are we seeing, Christopher?
I don't know, Leslie. What are we seeing?
Giant leaps, more leaps going forward. Of course, I'm always thinking from this natal perspective, like how can we use this energy in our lives, in our leadership, and how we're like this Jupiter of expansion and Uranus of revolutionary like breakthrough. We just have just like go big or go home kind of energy, but it's in like this earth sign. So, opening up and bringing massive awareness to money, resources, embodiment, peace and prosperity, like at the highest. Of course, there's always the monkey wrench that Uranus will throw in, but are we really going to lose what isn't ours? Is always my question. When Uranus takes things away.
That's a lovely question. Are we really going to lose what
isn't ours? Yeah.
That's a lovely, that's a perfect question. Yeah. Well, you have two planets that are connected to deities who are connected to heavenly fire. Zeus is famous for his thunderbolt, and which for many centuries was seen as divine judgment, and the image of the lightning striking was a very popular image during the French Revolution, because it showed the overthrow of the ancien regime, the old government. But this was ushered in by the discovery of electricity, which is connected to Uranus. Okay. And so it was and the figure that it surrounded was Benjamin Franklin from America, who was called the new Prometheus because he harnessed the fire from heaven and he turned it into a gift to mankind. He introduced electricity, which would go on to illuminate houses and move things that were inert. So you can certainly come at it from a very sudden and disruptive type of energy. We all associate Uranus with revolution and change. Something we don't always associate Jupiter with, but he is the planet of, is government. Okay. Jupiter is the Olympian who wins. He's the he's the one who sets up the regime in heaven that stays. All right, he overthrows Saturn, who overthrows Uranus. So we may be dealing with very tough or very realized political actions or disruption. All right, that I would imagine many astrologers are probably talking about the disruptive quality of this conjunction. When you have a conjunction of these two planets like this, it's things coming to a climatic point. Okay, or a breaking point. And it could be in the area of dealing with land and territory, which is Taurus, right? So this, and I think we're all familiar with the different theaters that different political strife and differences and attacks and assaults are taking place. And this probably is going to be linked to some of those hot spots, at least one. Who knows? Maybe a number of them. We may have the Arab Spring all over again, where it's a domino effect. But anyway, those sorts of things. In our regular life, it can definitely our regular life. But, for those who aren't heads of state, okay, this could be dealing with things coming to a head, dealing with health and wealth. This is the area of our lives that earth signs rule over, that they safeguard. Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn are all earth signs, and they deal with our health and our wealth. And so with Uranus, I'm sorry to say this, everyone, it could go this way, it could go that way, but I think Leslie will agree with me, and Amanda, that's Uranus. What was down is up, and what was up is down. It can be this flip. and that can be very much connected to Uranus. So I don't think it's going to be a bolt out of heaven, although both planets are named after deities famous for that, but I think it's going to be something that, for people who have felt like, I've been waiting for this to come together. I always use, is it a breakdown or a breakthrough with anything Uranian?
There's another thing with the disruption, right? Like when we think something is disrupted, but something else always emerges. And so historically, with previous Jupiter-Uranus conjunctions, it's been a new start of a new innovation. Yeah. And, as we're exploring more AI and power outages and cyber attacks and all the things that are going on in kind of the digital and electrical fields in terms of Uranus, I do see that there's going to be an innovation in terms of like, what does commerce mean in terms of energy? And, watching the stock market and watching AI take over. And why is AI so expensive? Because it takes a lot of processing power to run the computers. It takes a lot of energy from the energy grids. It takes more powerful GPUs. And if you're watching the stock market right now, NVIDIA and all of these GPU and chip makers are going off the charts. And so I'm super curious to see what comes forth from this particular new, fresh starting point of Jupiter and Uranus in terms of regenerative energy sources, renewable energy sources, how power grids are now going to have to innovate because the power grids that we have are failing over and over again, and how now energy is going to become a currency of its own. That's what I have my eye on.
I think that's brilliant. That's brilliantly rendered and interpreted. Let's also remember that revolution, we connect that to overthrow and things like that, but revolution also means that planet its orbit, it's coming back to where it started. And that's what came to my mind when you said, you have disruption, but you also have the start of something new. A completion of a revolution, the sun completes its revolution and we start a new year, and here we are in at the new year, basically for the agricultural year. So whatever comes from this will be both a fulfillment and starting something new.
I mean, the optimist in me.
You two feel it's safe to say that where we start this month, April 1st, and where we come out of it, that we will be changed, that the world will be changed. I mean, it's these things that you're talking about, this is big astrology. I get to talk to a lot of astrologers, and it's like a massive pileup here in April. It just sounds like being in that anticipation of things are changing, things are shifting, keeping in mind that those are also new beginnings. It's not all doom and gloom, that there are new things coming, there are new things on the horizon, and that things are changing.
Yeah.
Pretty dramatically.
Yeah. And also remember history, we might not think anything of it. I don't think the death of Caesar meant anything to, people living in Borneo, but that meant an enormous change, So the thing is, don't hold your breath waiting for the sky to fall. Don't hold your breath for the great, whatever. We may look back, and astrologers are used to this all the time. Oh, people didn't really know this, but 20 years later, this is when it began.
Well, it's interesting because we've been doing that quite a bit, looking at 2005, because that was the last time the Aries Libra eclipses were happening, was 2005. And it's kind of like, what did happen in 2005? Well, YouTube started. I mean, there was some social media breakthroughs. It's when social media started to actually be a thing that people were using that started to change our lives. I mean, look, now here we are on YouTube broadcasting to the world. I mean, these things, and at the time, you might not have noted that. It probably would have gone by most people as something. Right. But now looking back, you can see that was definitely a turning point in the way that we engage with each other. And look at all the ripple effects of social media. I mean, it's pretty massive. So
it's extremely massive. And the impact on our minds and private life, things like that.
children, the way they experience the world. I mean, it's dramatically different. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next one. So we have our final aspect for this month that we wanted to cover, which is Mars and Pisces conjunct Neptune and Pisces. Christopher, can you give us any advice on how to stay grounded, how to turn our dreams into tangible action? Like what are we looking at here?
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about staying grounded, or actually I wouldn't make that an objective.
Just like give up that thought.
That's going to be a disappointment. But what I did want to talk about, Pisces can be a confounding and annoying sign because it's like you want to move ahead with things and then you go into Pisces place. But what Pisces gives, with that reflection, with that profundity, as Leslie also pointed out, with that restoration, with that replenishment, if you know Pisces in your life, then you know how much they need to disappear for a while, and be incommunicado, and they'll come back and they're there, but they need that. It's ingrained in it. What we have here is the relationship to dream. When you have a Mars conjunct Neptune, Neptune rules over, an easy way of thinking of Neptune is that it rules over the collective imagination. For people who are familiar with Jungian psychology, it would be the collective unconscious. We all have our unconscious, but before we could actually put it in an internet, Jung came up with this collective unconscious where we're all wired to one another psychically. Now it's not a hard idea to imagine because we're all, social media, internet, all these sorts of things. But it's still a phantasmal world. Neptune rules over the phantasmal. You can learn something on the internet or whatever that you think has, physical repercussions, and it may not, So this is like our unconscious. So our unconscious works not only with imagination, but with the way we create, sculpt, and imagine our world. And when you start to think of how do you create your world? How do you sculpt your world? How do you imagine? How do you image your world? This has a profound impact on our tangible lives, And a lot of ways it's kind of random. So I think that with this Neptune, it's going to be plumbing the depths emotionally or creatively or psychically for yourself. But do you come back from it or not? I know I got really abstracty, Neptune-y or whatever with this. It's hard not to. Neptune is really about invocations, and it's about pictures, and it's about images. As you can imagine, this isn't something Mars is really comfortable with, but it's a place that artists know when they are in the flow. But also, to speak to the Mars, it's a place that athletes know when they visualize that routine and when they practice that routine with their body so that they're not thinking about it, but they've gone into that flow space. Many athletes talk about that. So this is your opportunity of connecting with your flow space and letting that be the thing that takes you through a creative endeavor or a difficult patch in your life, but if you can get into that flow and let that go and leave behind the words, the messages, the expectations, you may find that this Neptune-Mars conjunction pushes you through to the other side, leaving you with a sense of fulfillment instead of the constant craving.
I love that description of that Mars and Neptune in Pisces. Whenever I see Mars and Neptune in aspect, the word and how you're explaining it, my word is devotion. Because that devotion, you're still acting upon, you're still doing the thing, even if you don't know the outcome, just because you're devoted to maybe a spiritual sense, a soul need, or even just thinking of as an athlete, as an artist who's devoted to their craft. So I see like a lot of like yoga practitioners that have these Mars, Neptune, a lot of like classical musicians even.
Oh my God, that's such a beautiful word. It is devotion. It is devotion. Yeah.
So around this time, we may, if we surrender to this type of energy, have opportunities to experience those otherworldly realms, the inspiration, the vision, the beauty, the expansiveness. And with Saturn there, we actually might have a chance of translating that into the material world. Yeah. Well, that's amazing. Make some space for yourself. I want to end with any specific practices, frame of mind, mantras, anything that you think could be a tool for our community to use throughout this month of April as something that might help them to embody the energies, work with the energies, synthesize and integrate the energies within their lives. What would you say? Leslie, I feel like you have one.
There's so many that hasn't like digested yet. But like ending on this like this note of hope and devotion, if we can just remember this entire month through all of the challenges and the twists and the turns and all the things that are going to open up for us, is how can we remain devoted to our best selves?
Gosh, that's good.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Tuning into those energies throughout the month will anchor us in something lasting and help us to not be just up and down, and just anchor us in something that will help us to make the most of these times.
And I would add to that, you might glimpse a best self that you didn't know existed before. Remember, Pluto is sextiling the sun here. Okay. Wow. And we're going through the Pisces energy. So you may glimpse a best self that you didn't know was there.
Okay, you two. Oh my God. You took us on this like wild ride. Thank you so much. And it's always such a trip to sort of future cast and go into the future and kind of, I don't know if it's just human nature to sort of anticipate what you think it might be and what might happen, all those things. But then just to come back to this peaceful moment of through it all, it's amazing. We have opportunity always, and it could be better than ever. So I love that. Yeah. If you like these two astrologers, if you like this level of astrology, please check out the Inner Circle Expand. This would be your home to be immersed in these kinds of conversation and this level of dialogue and this level of learning all the time. So go check it out. Right now is the time to get promotional pricing. It's only open through April 9th. So make sure you go and look at that, see if it's right for you. We would love to have you. Leslie's going to be a teacher coming up in April. We're going to have Christopher in June and some amazing Rick Levine, Astro Lotta, some really, really amazing Andrea Michelle Kennedy, Jamie McGee, incredible astrologers next year. Celeste Brooks. So it's an all-star cast of teachers, and you will learn so much by immersing. What's the word? Immersing. Immersing yourself in the astrological language, but especially when guided by master astrologers like Christopher and Leslie and some of the cohorts that are a part of next year. So go check it out, astrologyapp.com/innercircle24. Christopher and Leslie, you're amazing. Thank you so much for being here with us. So looking forward to your Inner Circle months, and just thank you for being such amazing guides and guidesses on this journey. Appreciate you. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a part of our community. Thank you, as always, for making astrology a part of your life. We'll catch you on the next episode.